Thomas Green here with Ethical Marketing Service. On the podcast today, we have Howard Berg. Howard, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
It is my pleasure. Would you like to take a moment and tell the audience a bit about yourself and what you do?
That's great. I'm the world's fastest reader. I'm the Guinness record holder. I was in 1990 for 80 pages a minute. No one ever replaced me. I teach people how to get smarter by learning faster. I have kids as young as 11 in university getting A's. I work with corporations around the world. I train the U.S. Special Forces and the Royal Thai Army in Bangkok, and I train the Canadian Armed Forces in Toronto. I also work with seniors. I had a woman in Pasadena, a little old lady from Pasadena, apparently, 84 years old. She read 3 books and she read 3 books in 3 hours at 84. So it's not an age thing. I live right now in Florida, and I'm having a lot of fun helping people be more successful in their information-rich world.
Well, thank you for the introduction. It was actually on my mind as something to ask you, which was I know that the Guinness Book of World Records was in 1990 that you became the world's fastest reader.
Oh, I forgot to say my website, berglearning.com. In case you can find me at berglearning.com. I'm sorry for interrupting.
No, you're fine. I was wondering if you attempted to beat that initial record at any point, even if it's...
I'm the only one. And they told me why. They were very skeptical of any speed reading records. They said there was no way to know. But I had 10. The way you get in that book is you submit your proof. They don't come, you submit proof. So most records in the book have a newspaper or a show. That's how they get in. I had 10. I was in 5 cities and I was on the news. So it wasn't like, this is the news. And they gave me something to read. I read it 80 pages a minute in each city and got 100. And then I was in 5 different newspapers and the same thing. In fact, interestingly, a newspaper you would never think was like a legitimate paper, the National Enquirer of all newspapers. They were one of the toughest interviews. They had me read the next edition that hadn't been printed yet. Well, hadn't gone to the stores. It was printed, but they hadn't delivered it. So no one had seen it. And I read it in 3 minutes. And then for 8 hours, they tested me on every article for 8 hours. That was a long day. And literally there from 9 in the morning to 5 in the afternoon. And they were at the end, they were like, wow, you really can do this. So that was, I sent that to the Guinness people and I said, we never did speed reading because we're skeptical, but you have 10 different places, 10 cities with 10 reporters, all different. You couldn't know all of them. They can't all be your cousin. So apparently you're legitimate, and that's how I got in the book. It was the first time and the only time they did it because they felt I had 10 times more evidence than anyone else in the book.
Well, you touched on something initially, which was did you say 84-year-old case study?
Yeah, my oldest student was 92, and she went 100% faster in 4 hours. So it's not an age thing. My youngest is in 3rd grade. But that's very young. That was in Toronto. They're smart in Canada. The average 8th grader in America reads at the 3rd grade level. So they have Canadians reading at the 8th grade level with the 3rd grade. But my typical age range is from 6th grade and up. And there's a reason. You don't learn to read. You don't start reading to learn until 4th grade. The first 3 years of school are how to read. And that's the grade where everyone falls behind. The ones who can't read can't learn. So by the time you're in 6th grade, you've spent 2 years reading. You have a vocabulary. Up until then, English is a foreign language. Even if you speak English, you don't recognize the words in a book. So in fact, yesterday I was at an elementary school. I'm a Rotary president, and we volunteered to read books to kids, and they were in 1st grade. And it was delightful. It was just delightful to, encourage them to develop a passion for reading, because that's the key to succeeding in today's information-rich world. It's what you read and who you know. That's how you grow as an individual. And in business, data doubles every 6 months. And if you're not staying on top of that data, your competition will, and you're out of business. So it's not an option anymore to learn fast. It's an essential part of being successful.
Well, the reason why I mentioned the case study was because immediately when I saw one of the interviews, I think it was the Fox News one, which I would like to talk to you more about. But when I saw it, my initial reaction was, "You're some kind of savant." Have you heard that phrase?
I'm a psychobiologist by training, so I'd have to say yes. I am a savant. I have friends that are savants that are in Guinness too, but I see it as a responsibility rather than something that makes me special. I feel that you're supposed to do good with what you get. If you're given a gift, you're supposed to use it to help people and not just make it about yourself.
Yeah, it's a great philosophy. I suppose what do you say to people who think, well, that's great for you, very impressive, but you know, how would that apply to someone else? What do you say to them?
I did a double blind study. We did a program at Nightingale Conant, which I'm sure you heard of. They were the and it made $65 million. So we had to do a study to prove it worked. So we took 100 normal people, not savants, just people who wanted to learn how to do it. And we used the Nelson Denny. In fact, they used it, not me. I wasn't allowed in the city they did it in, let alone in the room. I was in I was in Texas and they were in Chicago. They didn't want my personality to alter people's perception of the program. They wanted it based strictly on the data in the program. And the Nelson Denny is a standardized test for speed and comprehension. And to make sure the second test did make them look smart because it was easier, they did a split test. 50 did A and B, and 50 did B and A. And they did an analysis of variance, which is a statistical tool to see if there's a discrepancy between the two groups. And there wasn't. Everyone in both groups doubled to quadrupled in 4 hours with very good comprehension. So I could say with objectivity that we scientifically validated that a normal person, not a savant, a normal person could double or quadruple their learning rate in 4 hours with very good results. And I'm going to say, honestly, most doubled. It went as high as four. But remember, that was immediate. That was 4 hours after they learned it. They were 100% to 400% faster. My experience has been if you do something, you get better at it. So if that's where you are immediately before you've rehearsed and practiced, it's fair to say you probably will do much better with a passage of time when you get more comfortable with what you just learned.
And you mentioned something else, which was in our messages beforehand. It was doubling your audience's productivity. So you have the floor. Please double my productivity. I desperately need it.
This is really important in business. As you can tell, I'm in business. Anyone in business, it's all about getting customers, keeping them happy, and giving them what you promised. And it all revolves around what you know. Every decision's based on what you know. So let me share some strategies: how to read faster, how to comprehend better, which I think is much more important than reading fast. No one wants to read fast. They want to learn fast. And I think that's a critical difference between what I do in most programs. I'm more interested in the learning than the speed. How do you remember it? It's great if you learn it, but if you don't know it when you need it, it's a waste of time. And here's a big one. How do you stay in the right state so you're using it successfully? Some people get nervous in public talking or taking tests. That affects your performance. So we're going to cover those four key elements, and then I'll open up to any questions and we can go much deeper if you'd like. And feel free to interact with me. I don't want to like do a soliloquy. It's your show. I have a lot to tell you, but you can stop me at any time and ask questions. How's that?
Sounds good.
Fine. First, how do you read faster? After this interview, pick a book you've read, and I prefer it to be nonfiction. It's more structured. And the fact that you already understand it means the only reason you won't understand it is you're going too fast because you understand it. So if you're reading quantum physics or existentialist philosophy, There might be a different reason why you're confused. There's like 5 people in the world who understand it. So get a timer, read for 1 minute at your normal rate so we can see how far you go. And when you're done, when the timer rings, use your smartphone, your smartwatch, put a little line in the left margin where you finished. So now you know that's how far I got in a minute. Now the magic. Go to the second chapter. Take your hand and go across one line at a time. And here's your eye following your hand as fast as you could comprehend. And that's important. Keep speeding up till you can't comprehend. That's when you know you went too fast because you should understand it. You already read it. Slow down just enough so you can understand it again. And then for 5 minutes, as fast as you could comprehend, not faster, not slower. Move your eye one line at a time, hand keeping the eye engaged. Now, go to the first chapter where you tested yourself. Time yourself for a minute. Take your hand, go as fast as you could comprehend. And that mark that you put in the first minute, you'll pass it by 20 to 40% just by engaging your eye. It solves a lot of slow reading problems. That's actually the first step. It's not the full system, it's the first step in reading faster. Now, yes, that'll get you quicker. And by the way, that's what most speed reading programs will do. They do mechanics. And there's a problem with that. You learn to read faster by conditioning your eye and brain to go quicker. And then you find a word you don't know, or a term you never saw, or a formula, and you slow down and learn it. You lose your speed. It was all or nothing. And that was a very bad way to learn to read fast. So I fixed it. The second thing I'm going to teach you is how I fixed it. The most important thing to me is comprehension. About 20, 30 years ago, when MSNBC first launched in the US, Dick Cavett, who was a very famous talk show host in the 70s, was one of their first hosts. And I was on with him. And we got to be friends. And after the show, we were talking. He told me a funny story about Woody Allen. Apparently, Woody Allen took Evelyn Woods in its heyday. And he read War and Peace, which, is like this big in 5 minutes. He said, "That's amazing. What do you remember, Woody?" And Woody said, "It's about the Russian Revolution. That's all I remember." That was speed reading. It was a biology book. I think it was a math book. That's what you learned. You learned what topic it was about. Not good enough. So the guy who owned Evelyn Woods in its heyday was Maurice Thompson Jr. And I trained his son, my system. He hired me and said, "You've gone past speed reading, speed learning, taking it in the 21st century. Let me show you how." I mentioned I majored in psychobiology. I actually did a 4-year psych program in 1 year and studied bio at the same time. That took 4 years, but the psych program I did in my senior year while still being in bio program. And I got in the 99th percentile in the world on the GRE in biology. I read 48 books in 3 nights, like biochemistry, cell physiology, genetics. Got 3 questions wrong. I got an 800. But so talking about that. So the thing that happens now is comprehension, and the key element is schema. They say, "What's that?" I'll demonstrate it. You'll see exactly how it works. I'm going to read a passage that has no schema. Simple words, but you have no idea what I'm talking about. Of course, there's no schema. That's what makes it make sense. This is an easy thing to do. If possible, you could do it at home, but you could always go someplace else if it's necessary. Beware of overdoing it. This is the major mistake. It may cost you quite a bit of money. I have no idea what I'm talking. It could be a lot of things. And that's why they tell you when you write to use specific words. I'm going to read the same exact passage, but I'm going to put a title on that has schema. And instantly, it makes total sense. One word, laundry. Laundry. This is an easy thing to do. If possible, you could do it at home. You could always go someplace else if it's necessary. Beware of overdoing it. This is a major mistake. It may cost you quite a bit of money. Confusion's gone. I'm teaching people the psychology their brain uses to make sense out of even very, very technical texts like science and accounting, marketing, high level thinking. And when you use these schematic clues correctly, like I just demonstrated, you can go two, three, four times faster with better comprehension because you actually know what to look for and how to make sense out of very technical material. So that's a big piece of what I've done that's different. It also means you can slow down and learn something you didn't know and then immediately go quickly again. You didn't lose your speed like you used to. It was more of a learning program than a speed reading program. It just turns out you can read two to four times faster and learn faster. So that's 2 points. Would you like to ask any questions on that before I continue?
Well, the analogy to the first point, it was me thinking that the two scenarios that you used, one just reading typically your normal speed, and then the second one, which is using your hand and going just before your comprehension, just before you lose comprehension, just made me think of we can walk at a particular speed, and typically everyone walks everywhere, but that's not the quickest that we can travel. We can run, or we can jog, or we can sprint, and it just made me think of that as a point to highlight.
Good analogy. Well, the next thing I'd like to talk about is emotional intelligence. So I think that's a key element that's missing in business. In fact, when we talk about schema, we're in a business program. Let me just make a point. How are you using schema in your business? When you communicate with prospect or client, be careful to use language that makes sense to them, not just you. You may have technical terms you throw around in your business all the time, and they make total sense to the experts. But if you're dealing with a novice, you're going to sound confusing. And instead of building rapport, you're alienating them. So be very cautious how you use language with people. Talk to them on their map, what they understand, what makes sense to them. And if you do use a specialized word like an SEO, I mean, you know what it is, I know what it is, but not everyone knows what it is. So when you're using words like that, here's how you can handle it. Put a comma, imagine you're writing it, put a comma after it and say it again. I'm going to do this with biology. There's a word, Agileus phoenicius. What the heck is that? This is how I'd write about it if I was writing it for an average person. The Agileus phoenicius, comma, a red-winged blackbird, comma, flew from its perch. I defined it. So when you're using a word that perhaps someone will not understand, rather than confuse them, say it again in plain English. Now you've covered two bases. If they do know the word, you didn't insult them and dumb it down. If they don't know the word, you didn't overstate something that confused them and lost rapport. So you can use those words, but you have to tell them what they mean as well. So people are getting the message clearly that you're trying to communicate. That's an effective use of schema in business. Now, emotional intelligence. Imagine I'm a driving instructor and I trained you to drive and you're ready for your road test. You made your appointment. You called me back, said, I failed. How could you fail? You're a great driver. I got nervous. It was a test. You know anyone ever got nervous on an exam? That's an emotional intelligence issue. So how do you fix that? When I was with the Green Berets and the Royal Thai Army, they're very well trained, but they're often awake 3, 4 days in a row. And when you haven't had sleep, you may not remember what they told you. If you forget what they told you, you could get killed. You and I have a bad day, we work late. When they have a bad day, they don't go home. So I was training them on EQ skills, and I'm going to do that with our audience and you right now. One of the key things we need in business is to stay alert. And sometimes it's tricky. Maybe you're working late at night, or as many people in professions have to get courses like doctors and attorneys, keep their licenses active. So you go to work all day and you're in school at night trying to get these credits and you're exhausted from working so hard. How can you wake up without coffee, which might overstimulate you and you won't fall asleep later? I'm going to demonstrate that just as I taught it to them. Now, ideally, we should be standing, but then we will be so high up our webcams will see our navels and our sweatpants. So we won't do that right now, but we'll pretend we're standing. And this is how we're going to do it. We know the left side of the brain controls the right and the right the left. So do this with me, and those watching, do it with me to learn this. Take your left hand, touch your right shoulder, do that. Take your right hand, touch your left shoulder, alternating. So it's not just the Macarena without music, it's a brain massage using one side and then the other. Now, if you were standing and you do this, your knee would move, but we could do it sitting just to demonstrate. Take your left hand, touch your right knee, and right hand and touch your left knee, alternating. Again, if you're standing, the knee will move. So both sides of your brain will be active. Perfect. Now grab your thumb like I am in your hand and say this like you mean it. I feel great. Yes. Go ahead. Say it
I
like you mean
feel
it.
great.
I don't believe you. You have
Yeah,
to
I'm not
feel
surprised.
great. Great. Now, I feel great. That's how you'll feel later. I feel great. That's not what you want. I feel great. Let's go. Come on, you can do it.
The
Throw it
issue I
out.
have right now is that I work in a
Throw
business
as
center.
much as you got. It's important that it's sincere. You can't lie to your brain. Okay, we're going to do 3 sets of these, starting at my speed. First, slowly, 6 times each time. Ready? One, do it with me. Two, three, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. How do you feel? I feel
Marvelous.
great.
I feel
Yes, I
marvelous.
can. You gotta get that energy going. Okay, let's do it again. A little faster. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. How do you feel? I feel great.
I feel marvelous.
Yes. Okay, marvelous is fine. We'll go as fast as you can now. If you're standing, don't be near a table. You'll bang your knees. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. How do you feel? I
I feel
feel
great.
yes, perfect. Now, you know what happens when you do this 3 times, Thomas?
I do not
Nothing.
know.
Nothing. Now, you probably would like something. So let me show you how that works. Remember Pavlov? He rang a bell, he fed a dog. He rang a bell, he fed a dog. Then she rang the bell. What happened? The dog drove. You don't want to drove. You do want to feel great. You want to be in an important business meeting, stand up and start tapping your shoulders. People will think something is very off. If you do this every day for 90 days, the new studies show habits take 90 days, not 30, every day. So now you're in that important meeting and you need that energy. You're kind of fading. You've had that happen. Grab your thumb and say to yourself, I feel great. Yes. And your brain remembers every time you did it, you stimulated the left brain, the right brain, both sides, and you wake up. So you this is the stimulus, this is the bell. Grabbing your thumb is your bell. And no one knows you're doing it but you. And you can create all kinds of important states: focus, concentration, relaxation, things that are critical in business, breakthrough, creativity. And so you can anchor, it's called anchoring, a positive emotional state. Now, here's a question for our business people. What emotions do people need to have to successfully do what you're telling them? And what emotions can get in the way? And what are you doing to help create that? You realize now that most of the failures you've had after giving good information, they were in the wrong state of mind to do it correctly. And if they weren't in that right state of mind, no matter how much good information you gave them, it didn't work. And then they're disappointed and you've lost a customer and a referral. So EQ skills, very, very important. And I want to tell you why I was emphasizing the state. Uh, the longest running show in history was Joe Franklin. Now, Joe Franklin had a 50-year run as an individual, not a number of hosts on one show, just him. And I was on the last 3 weeks of that 50-year run. And I had a chance during this commercial break to ask him his secret. I said, Joe, tell me, how did you break the world record? You're on 50 years. How did you do it? What's your secret? And he told me, he said, sincerity. And when you can fake that, you can do anything. I want you to know no one can fake sincerity for 50 years. I don't care how good an actor you are. You could have been Richard Burton. It could have been the greatest actor in history, Olivier. No, 50 years. No one can fake it for 50 years. You have to be true to yourself. If you don't feel great when you do that, you won't feel great when you need it. That was why I was pushing. I was trying to put that state to work. Do you have any questions on what I just covered?
Well, I was going to ask you about is this does this come from NLP? Did you study
Yes,
NLP?
yes, I did. In fact, let me recommend a book to our business audience. The best NLP book ever written on sales and marketing. It's Unlimited Selling Power by Donald Moyne, Moines. You'll find it on Amazon, Unlimited Selling Power. If you're in business, you need to influence people to make the good decisions they need to make. Now, there's an ecology to this. Your mom said, eat your vegetables. It wasn't to hurt you. I'm not trying to sell cocaine or heroin. I'm trying to help people make more money by getting smarter. And I'm giving them a total satisfaction guarantee. So I'm not doing unethical things, encouraging them to say yes. I'm trying to get them to make a decision that'll make their lives better. And most of you have things you do to make people's lives better, and they're hesitating. You need to overcome that to get them to make the decision that will help them. And Donald Moyne writes these NLP based scripts. He's a PhD, and they're fantastic. They'll adapt to any company or business. So I highly recommend, and it's not something I get paid for. It's a good book. And you're right, NLP is essential. And if you haven't heard of it, you need to if you're in business. It's the key to business success. If you ever watch the commercial and you say, I got to have that, that was NLP. You didn't know there's a meta program going on. In fact, can I do a demo on that?
Go for it.
I'm going to control your mind right now. I'm telling you, everyone listening, I'm going to control your mind. There's nothing you can do to stop me. Even though you know I'm about to do it, you can't stop me. Don't think of Mickey Mouse drinking a Coca-Cola. What popped in your head?
A pink elephant.
Mickey Mouse drinking a Coca-Cola. Now imagine in business writing copy, advertising copy, letters, critical letters, having that power to give people the direction their mind needs to go in towards making that decision to use you in your service. Can you see how powerful that could be? And this is not taught in business schools, but the people who are very successful, I sold $65 million worth of one of my programs on a commercial. I understood the power of language and how to use it correctly. And I did it with a good intention. I was trying to help them, not hurt them. I knew that the worst case is they get smarter. I think people could live with that. I wasn't trying to take advantage of them. I was trying to make their lives better. As long as you know what you're doing is good for people and not just for you, it's okay. When you start manipulating people into making bad decisions that are good for you but bad for them, that I'm not on board with. So we covered EQ. Before I move on to memory, I'll let you ask any questions you might have.
Well, one of the questions on my list was because I mean I can see the large number of books in the background. I wanted to know how you've applied this skill. So I'm comfortable in saying that having this skill would be hugely beneficial. How has it been beneficial to you?
I'm going to give you a very specific example right out of my program. Now, I'm doing this 35 years. And in the beginning, I used to do a lot of live programs around the country. And most speakers during lunch, where do they go? They disappear. I never did that. I invited my audience to go to lunch with me for two reasons. I wanted to find out what was confusing them and what they liked so I can make my program better. Doesn't matter what I think. It matters what they think. They're the customer. Customer is more important than the person doing the marketing. And I had asked them, and some people, I had a part of the program where they learned how to read backwards. And a lot of people said, I just don't get it. And a lot of people had trouble going from normal reading to fast reading. You know, and what would happen is when you're reading, there's a voice in your head saying words one at a time. When I'm reading, I'm seeing movies. Like when you're in a car, everything's visual, front, back, left, and right. 70, if you're in the US, 70 miles an hour, about 120, I think, in metric. And your brain is processing in every direction and listening to the radio and talking to people. In a book, it's 200 words a minute. You don't remember anything the next day because in a book, you're listening to the words, and in a real life situation, you're seeing. Well, to turn on that part of your brain that can do that, I have to get you confused. As you're getting confused, the part of your brain that's been reading can't process. It's overwhelmed. So the brain looks for another way to do it. And it goes to the part of the brain that can do it after about 15, 20 minutes. It takes a little time to get it confused enough that it searches for a different pathway. Well, for years, people would say, I got so confused, I gave up. I'm a doctor. I'm not understanding anything I'm reading. No, because you're not reading the way you used to, and you're still not reading the new way. You're in between. And so they say it's not going to work. I'm a lawyer, I'm a doctor, I'm a businessman. I really need to learn, and I'm not learning anything. And once they felt that way, I couldn't fix it. They've already put a block up in their mind that this doesn't work. It's a waste of my time. And it's a waste of my money. How did I fix that? I want you to listen carefully. This solution is very powerful and it works in business as well, other businesses. So now, knowing that's the problem, it's not that they can't do it, but they believe they can't do it. And that's bad. So I tell them at the beginning, I'm going to confuse you on purpose at a certain point to turn on the part of your brain that can do this. And in order for it to turn on, I need you confused. And for the first time in your life, listen carefully, the more confused you get, you can relax because you'll know it's working. It's supposed to confuse you to switch this part of your brain on. Enjoy it. This is the first time getting confused was a good thing. And it's very temporary. It's only a couple of minutes. And because you permitted yourself to stay in a confused state for a very short time, you'll read 100 to 400% faster for the rest of your life without confusion. So let's begin now and relax as you begin to get confused. Well, this is a hypnotic induction.
I was
I'm
about to ask you
forward,
that.
I'm forward pacing them. I'm showing them the outcome. I'm explaining honestly what's transpiring in their brain. They literally, I'm not lying to them. This is what's going on, and this is why it's going on, and this is why it has to go on for you to reach that next level. You have to make a change. And while the change is happening, before it takes place, there's confusion. And that's what means it's working. It's the confusion that turns it on. So as people realized that this was not a bad thing, but part of the process, they accepted it. I was honest with them. You're going to feel a little uncomfortable for about 10 minutes because nothing seems to be working. But that's good. It's not supposed to seem to be working. That's why it works. And that's the truth. And knowing it ahead of time, before they got upset, before they got confused, before they gave up, and telling them, and you can relax, and saying it that way. Not, you can relax. That doesn't relax you. You can relax as you experience this confusion, knowing that means you're going to succeed. And what happened after that is nobody had a problem. They relaxed. And once they relaxed, that emotional block that could have prevented them from succeeding disappeared. Think of how many businesses there's a stage where people get nervous or anxious or confused, and you didn't say anything. And what happens? They get frustrated, they give up, they stop trying. You can fix that with EQ skills. That's what I'm demonstrating. And it made $65 million making that simple change. So I'm going to say that was a good change for me to make. And I'm sure that many, and by the way, I help companies. I'm working right now with a Mr. QOL, Mark Later. He's in the United Kingdom. He's one of my business partners. And I'm working with companies in England and around the world, especially with him. So yeah, this is learnable. This could be taught to a company, and they can incorporate it into their business and marketing strategies to make more money.
Great answer. Very thorough.
Thank
I
you.
mean,
Would you like memory, or do you have another question first?
I do have other questions, but you go point number 4. You go for it.
Okay, again, it's your show. I try to be respectful of a host. And
I think you're very respectful.
I appreciate, tell that to my wife. I have a funny story. I tell you, my first marriage was a storybook marriage. Unfortunately, Stephen King wrote the book. But my wife now is wonderful. She's the nicest person I know. But she says, you talk a lot. That's how I make a living. What do you want me to do? If I was a mute, I wouldn't be making a living. Okay, I'm going to teach you memory. Because people say, hey, you read 80 pages a minute. Do you remember anything? Yeah, I remember a lot. I remember books I read 50, 60 years ago really well. So can you. And I'm going to give you a technique now. I'm going to give you 10 things to remember. And those in our audience, do this with me. It's interactive, makes it more fun. You want to remember pole, shoes, tricycle, car, glove, gun, dice, skate, cat, bowling pins. Is it safe to say you don't know all 10 backwards and forwards effortlessly at this stage? You will in 3 minutes. Not only will you know it, it will be effortless, and you can go backwards, forwards, or anywhere in between with no effort. This is so simple. You literally can teach this to 3-year-olds. Literally. There are two strategies. One, you remember 10% of what you read. That's a fact. 90% of what you say and do. What I'm about to do is not an exercise, it's a tool. You will use this forever in your businesses. So when I ask you to say and do, to lock it in and be able to empower yourself with this tool, please do that. Second, the technique. The ancient Greeks discovered thousands of years ago a shortcut for list memorization. Take a list you know, it's hanging in your brain. And what do you do with hangers? You hang things on it, and you take the list you're learning and hang it. I'm going to bet everyone watching us today, including you, can count to 10. I feel confident that I'm right. And we're going to use 10 numbers that you know that are in your brain to learn 10 things super fast. Are you ready?
Ready?
Number 1 looks like a pole, like a flagpole or a lamp pole. So when I say 1, you say pole. 1.
Oh.
Excellent. 2 is shoes. That's how many shoes you wear. What's 2?
Shoes.
What was 1?
Pole.
3 is a tricycle, 3 wheels. Tricycle. What's 3?
Tricycle.
What's 2?
Shoes.
What's 1?
Pole.
Getting smarter. You're learning the system. 4 is a car. There are 4 tires on a car. What's 4?
Car.
2. Go to 2.
Shoes.
1.
Pole.
3.
Tricycle.
And I saw you looking for your pictures. That's how the brain works. And if you make a mistake, that's how you learn also, rehearsal. 5 is a glove. How many fingers are in a glove?
5.
What's 5?
Glove.
3.
Tricycle.
1.
Pole.
Perfect. 6 gun. They love them in Texas when I lived there. I didn't have one, but the Cowboys, they like 6 guns. What's 6?
Did you say guns?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, I don't have one. They did. It was Texas. 4.
4. Has it already gone? Car.
There you go. 2.
Shoes.
And the more you do that, the easier it'll get. You're reinforcing it. 7 is lucky in the game of dice. If you hit 7, you win. What's 7?
Dice.
5, giving you a clue.
Glove.
3.
Tricycle.
1.
Pole.
Rhymes work. Say 8 skate.
8 skate.
What was 8?
Skate.
6. What did they love in Texas?
Guns.
4.
Car.
2.
Shoe. Or
Almost
shoes.
done. 9. That's how many lives a cat has. So 9 is a cat. What's 9?
Cat.
Sarah was lucky in what game?
Dice.
5 is a,
Glove.
3 is a,
Tricycle.
1 is a.
Pole.
Last one, 10. You have a bowl? How many pins are in a lane? 10 bowling pins. What's 10?
Pins.
Pins. Let's do the list you couldn't do together now. Everyone. 1,
Pole.
2,
Shoes.
3,
Tricycle.
4,
Car.
5,
Glove.
6, Texas.
Guns.
7's lucky in.
Dice.
8 rhymes with.
Skate.
9 is a
I don't know what 9 is.
pet. What kind of pet has 9 lives?
Oh, cat.
And 10, last
Pins.
thing. Perfect. Now, here's how to use it to speed learn numbers, which are big in business, really big. Let's imagine you went to a conference, you're in room 314. By the time you're in the lobby, how many times did you forgot what room you were in? Here's how to remember numbers. Numbers are hard, pictures are easy. Every number has a picture now. And the zero is the 10 bowling pins. So 3 is a tricycle, 1 is a pole, 4 is a car. Picture this. A tricycle hits a pole on a car. A tricycle hits a pole on a car. Tricycle, what number?
315, right?
314.
All
Tricycle
right.
pole car. It would be tricycle pole glove.
That would
So
be a
314,
car
tricycle
with
pole
5
glove.
wheels.
Yeah. Now, 3.14 is pi in geometry. So I teach this to kids for math and science and history. In business, it's percentages, due dates, product SKU numbers that are confusing, uh, room numbers. Anywhere there's a number, each number is a picture. String them together in an interesting movie. When you play the movie, converts back to the number. Now you know how to speed learn numbers.
Thank you. I don't think anyone's tested me as much as you have on the on the application of things. So I
Well, we're
appreciate
welcome. I want to
the
make it
challenge.
fun. It's fun. Doing is more interesting than listening. And I try to make my interviews with. I've learned if people are engaged and they're having fun and they're learning, they remember it because they enjoyed it. When all you do is talk, they don't enjoy it. They don't remember it because it wasn't fun.
Well, there you go. That's another learning point, right? So a complete side change of subject here. What's it like working with Justin Timberlake?
As the world record speed reader, I strongly endorse this product.
So you can read hundreds of books on this?
I just did.
I did too. No, I didn't.
But I don't sing as well as him. Well, he has 3 bodyguards. I didn't have any. Actually have a funny story about that. When we got to the studio, there was a big sign on the front of the studio saying, no autographs, no pictures. And I said, that was very considerate of them. I won't be swamped today with all these people wanting my autograph and pictures. I'd like to think working with me was the high point in his career and Peyton Manning, but I suspect they may have had a different way of looking at their life accomplishments. And my one day with them wasn't the high point in their career, but it was delightful. He was a nice man. He was polite. He was fun to work with. It's that's one of the lovely parts of my work. I meet people like that. I interact with them, and I met Ron Howard from Happy Days, the producer, and I get to meet them and talk with them, and they actually want to talk to me. And I do feel that's a privilege. It's nice to be around people like that and share things with them. I take it as I feel fortunate that I've been given those opportunities. I don't take them for granted.
Yeah. Well, I guess people are, regardless of who they are, people are interested in what you do. So you must be doing something right.
Well, I just want to make it clear I'm not Brad Pitt's better looking twin brother. People have asked me, but if you look, my hair is shorter. That's how you can tell us apart. Otherwise, I mean, the paparazzi, I go outside, it's everywhere. He reads, the reading guy is here. I mean, just, you'd be amazed at the groupies for reading. It's everywhere you go. I'm surrounded by beautiful women who want me to read. It's a tough life, Unfortunately, that hasn't happened.
Well, it might be a more logical society if that were the case.
I guess it's better in a way. Look, John Lennon was really famous. It didn't work out well. So
This is true,
there's
yeah.
another side to the story, which I don't need a bodyguard, and nobody's coming after me because they think they're me. So that's kind of another side. I can actually have a real life and still, when I'm on stage, people know me. When I'm walking in the street, who cares? There's another chubby guy walking.
Well, I said I was going to ask you about the Fox News interview.
Literally the world's fastest reader, Howard Berg. He is going to be able to tell us what is in that and whether it solves our ages-long healthcare crisis. Oh, whoa, he's done. He is done. Howard, congratulations. Thank you very much for the better part of this hour. I know, champ, I know. You want to take a breather, or maybe someone get him some water. Maybe vodka might be in order at this point. But
I was slightly intrigued about the limitations of what it is that you do, and if there are any, because I mean that was a significant task you took on, and I'm talking as though everyone knows.
That was a job.
Can you give a bit of background about what you were doing for those that haven't seen the interview?
Yes. Well, I read the 1,500-page healthcare bill in 50 minutes. Now, it was on Cavuto. A lot of your audience probably is familiar with him because he's pretty well known in the business community as an expert. And he told me I was like the 8th person he called, and everyone said it was impossible. No one could read it and tell them what was in it. And I said, well, I can do it. He says, well, you can do it. They said they can't. Well, I said, I'm the fastest in the world, but I can actually do what I talk about, not just talk about it. So I read the 1,500 pages. It's about a page and a half a second in 50 minutes, and did an analysis. Here's some backstory, and this I'll be happy to share. When I was younger, after I finished, I did my psych and bio program. I got interested in the consciousness, not just the biology of the brain, but consciousness. And I studied yoga. I studied all 7 schools. I went to Yogi Bhajan, and I learned to meditate and reflect. Before I do an important show, like reading 1,500 pages in 50 minutes, I meditated for over an hour. Now, I'm going to be reading a page and a half a second, and I have a headset on. He's interviewing people who are interesting, like Pelosi, at that time, John Boehner, Cantor, much more intriguing than the healthcare bill, which is boring. It's a legal document. And if I'm listening to them, I'm not reading, and I'm going to look like a total idiot. When he asked me, what did you read? I don't know, but I heard great Pelosi was really interesting. That wasn't what I was there for. My job was to read the bill. So I have to be so focused to go. If I miss 3 seconds, it's 5 pages. That's a lot. I have to be so focused that nothing distracts me from my task. And meditation helps me to get that singularity, that intense focus. But when he says, Howard, I got to stop and answer questions like you ask questions. So I have to be focused enough to turn out everything, but when my name is asked, break my state and answer a question. And the way I did that is through meditation and learning how to control the flow and focus of my mind, which is some of what I teach people to do because it's very critical. And in business, it's essential to stay focused. There's things that make us upset, that disrupt us, they're contradictory to what we feel, and you still got to do business. So it's really, really important for business not to lose it, to stay on task, regardless of what the world is doing or the people around you. Your job is to do the best you can, regardless of conditions. And that's I talked about EQ. This is EQ. Learning to stay on target, on focus. Right now, I've been hired by a law firm. It's a non-disclosure, but what I am doing, I'm reading 1 million pages. They're doing a lawsuit that involves very technical biological and medical information. And and a lot of it is in legalese. And someone has to read the 1 million pages and find which of them matter to the case. They don't all matter. Some of them will be critical to winning, and others will be superfluous. And I do this for companies. I speed read through when they have a big project, they have a ton of material. They need someone to abstract it for them so they can get it done. They don't want to read a million pages. They want me to read it and then tell them, okay, what did you learn? What are we supposed to do? That's part of what I do. So I'm doing this right now for a very big law case, a multi-million-dollar case. Again, I can't talk about details because that would be unethical. But I can tell you what I am doing, and I will read million pages in probably a week and a half, and then tell them this is the material you want for your case. This is not relevant. It's relevant for other purposes, but not for what your goal and objective is in the courtroom. That's one of the jobs I do with companies.
Well, if it's a million pages, I mean, presumably, you're doing breaks and that sort of thing.
Oh, yeah. I'm not a machine. I am a human being. Yes, I take breaks. I take naps. Naps are important when you're doing that. You got to cool off the brain. When you're going a page and a half a second for an hour and a half, you got to stop. Because at some point, your brain's like, that's enough. I'm done. Give me a break.
But yeah, what I was going to say is there's no limit to, within reason, obviously, there's no limit to like a certain number you can retain.
Well, I read 48 bio books in 3 nights. It was like plant systematics, genetics, cell physiology, biochemistry. And I always consider that fairly technical material. I don't think anyone would say that's light reading. That's like the Lord of the Rings. No, it's pretty technical. I took the GRE and I got 3 questions wrong. I got an 800. I was in the 99th percentile in the world. Then I wondered, here's a good question. Was it Howard or the system? That's a big difference. Am I the savant or is the system what matters? So I taught this to children aged 11 to 15. Those are normal people, 11 to 15. And they did a 30-chapter book in lifelong developmental psychology, a sophomore college course. They were 11 years old in 1 week. And they took the AP test on it. And out of 18, 15 of them passed the course for full college credit in a single week. What does it tell you? It's not just that I can do it, it's learnable. Everything I'm describing and talking about, companies can use. Imagine, like Ruth read 3 books in 3 hours the day after I taught her. Now imagine, Thomas, every business person in the UK learned a new skill every day. They could read, say, 1 hour, and they learned Photoshop. And the next day they learned how to write a sales letter. And the next day they learned about NLP. Every day for 10, 15, 20 years. What would that do to that company's bottom line and their productivity and the competitiveness? That's what I'm doing. That's where it comes into business. People don't think about it, but it's the reading of information that's going to keep you ahead of the competition. Can I give a quick story on that?
Yeah, go for it.
About 10 years ago, I was lecturing on cruise ships. And my wife wanted to go to Hawaii. And if you're married, you listen to your wife. So I called up and said, I want to do the cruise to Hawaii. They said, well, they don't want speed reading, right? Well, that sucks. What do they want? I want speed reading, right? They said, well, we want someone to teach Photoshop, video, and photography. And my answer was, I do that. Did I do that? No. Was I lying? No, because I know I learned fast. And I knew by the time I went on the cruise, I'd know it. And I did. So I read 10 books on Photoshop in 3 hours because I read fast. And I believe if you read 10 books, you're an expert if you understand what you read. Next day, I read 10 books on photography. And the next day, 10 books on video. So I get to the cruise and I'm like, please, God, let these people not know what a camera is. You mean they don't use film? How do they take pictures without film? That was my perfect audience. 90 years old, didn't know what a camera is today. That was my dream. The first person walks into the seminar. I'm a photographer, 38 years, professional. I came here to learn how to take pictures from you. They're like, okay. The second guy comes in. I've been doing Photoshop for 5 years. It's really hard. I came to learn it from you. I hear you're an expert. And my wife's sitting in the front crying. They said if I didn't do it, they'd throw us off the boat. not in the water when we got to shore. And they did throw people off the ship that didn't do their job. So for a week, I'm teaching these people how to take pictures, how to use Photoshop, how to do video. At the end of the week, they're like, how many years did you study to learn that? I learned last week in 3 hours. I wanted a free cruise to Hawaii. That's the benefit. Everyone watching, imagine if you could learn Photoshop in 3 hours instead of 4 years, or NLP, or sales and marketing skills, or new breakthroughs in your industry. What would that do to your bottom line? If you not only learned it, but remembered it, understood it, and could use it. That's what I do. That's how I help companies make money.
Well, you've been a fantastic guest and provided a lot of amazing information. So I'm going to enjoy rewatching this one.
I appreciate that. That's very kind.
Except when I got the car and the 5 wrong. I won't enjoy that bit.
Normal. That's normal. That's normal. Don't beat yourself up. That's how the brain learns. When you make a mistake and you do it again, you're rehearsing. Just like a guitar player, they rehearse. Typists, they rehearse. That's how you learn. You did nothing wrong. That's the way the brain works.
Howard, what are your goals?
I like helping people. I mentioned I was a yogi when I was younger. I believe I've been given a gift. I don't think reading 80 pages a minute, that's a gift. I mean, I earned it, I worked hard for it, but I still see it as a gift. And you watch the news, I watch the. Do you think there's too many smart people in the world? That's our biggest challenge right now. It appalls me what's going on our planet and the ignorance that you see going. Look at my country right now. It's like it's the best I've ever seen it. And I feel I have a responsibility. These kids that are growing up today, our children, they're inheriting a mess: global warming, exploding deficits, diseases. My feeling is we got to make them smart enough to fix some of the problems we're giving. We have to give people the skills they need to stay employed, to be able to keep their jobs. Look at Blockbuster. Outsmarted everyone, bought train loads of DVDs and put every competitor out of business. Till another company said we don't need stores, we could do it in the mail, and they went bankrupt. If you're in business and you're making money today, don't count on that working tomorrow. Look at Sears and J.C. Penney. And you know what happened? Jeff Bezos is using their business model. He took the catalogs that made them wealthy in the late 1800s and 1900s and put it online. He's the richest man in the world, and they're going bankrupt. He used their business strategy. You cannot rely on what works today to make you successful tomorrow. The only way to stay competitive is to keep learning and not be comfortable with where you are, but always try to move forward to the next big thing before anyone else does, because someone else will do it. So my purpose is to help people do that. I feel that's my calling: help children get higher grades and get smarter so they can solve problems in the future we're giving to them, help businesses prosper in a knowledge economy, and help us seniors stay. I'm 72. Help us seniors stay mentally fit. I feel mentally like I'm 20. I'm writing, I'm lecturing, I'm creating. I challenge myself every day with something that's complicated and hard to keep my brain working like an exercise. And that's what business people today must do to remain competitive. Because if you don't, your competitor will, and then you're going to be out of business. And that's a reality everyone has to wake up to.
So for people who do want to know more, and maybe, do you do consulting type teaching?
I consult, I tutor, I mentor. I can do. I become a reader, like a CLO for a company. Give me what you need to know. Tell me the information that needs to be learned. I'll learn it. I'll condense it, and I'll explain it to you. They can reach me at berglearning.com. That's BERG learning.com. Or email me, howard@berglearning.com. And I love working with people and I love helping people. My greatest joy, I had a 19-year-old pass the bar in California, a 16-year-old graduated with a 4.0 economics degree, master's in math at 19, 397, Yale professor. C student at 11, 22-year-old English professor. That's just the young people. And I love doing that. It makes me feel I'm doing something with my life that's changing the world for the better. And I don't think there's anything better than to know that your life is counting for something and not just for you. So I love helping people. I hope some of the people listening will give me that opportunity. And I'll not only help you, but help your kids. Because the same skill you're learning to make money, they'll use in school. The difference is what they read, not how they read. They read a bio book, you read a spreadsheet. Reading is reading, learning is learning. What you read and learn might change, but how it's done is identical. And we all win. When more people are doing the best they can, everybody wins. I can't do it myself, but I'm a Rotary president. I volunteer a lot in third world countries that have no money, like Malawi, to help. Because they can't buy anything. They can't even buy food. How are they going to buy a reading program? So I volunteer because that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to help. And I hope some of our audience will do that. And if they hire me, I'll donate my reading program to a school for free as a thank you present for the school they pick. Because I think lots of schools today have no money, and a lot of those kids can't afford to learn my program, but we can still get it in their hands. So I use a company that hires me to sponsor it to a school. And that way I pay it forward like a good Rotarian. And that's what I do. There's an ecology to it. We can all make a better world if we help each other. Instead of competing with each other, we help each other. And that's my hope. And I hope that I've gotten that message across today.
A very positive note to end on. Howard Berg, thank you very much.
I'm delighted to be here. Thank you.